if she is saying that she's been through death threats, she's been sexualized, and she's been threatened, and she has not been happy. If your response to that is to criticize and critique how she went about being who she was, then that is part of the problem to me. What is up, fam? Welcome back to Big Ray's Garage Grind Mental Health Edition, brought to you by the Mindful Therapy Group. And, man, it's been a long time since we've been back in the studio. The season ended, had some other things that were going on and happening that kind of slowed us down a little bit. But, hey, we were still hanging in there, doing what we do, and making things happen. And so we're back in here today to record another episode of Big Ray's Garage Grind Mental Health Edition. And before I get started, I just wanted to also just give a shout out to some people that have become really good friends of mine. So, we started this podcast, maybe almost like a year ago or so, just not quite a year ago. And since then, I've become really good friends with Derek and Jessica Crain, who are the founders of the Mindful Therapy Group. And let me just say this. They are unbelievably kind, caring, and really loving individuals. They've invited me to different events and things that they've hosted. They've invited me to their vacation home down in Hood Canal. Derek checks in on me a lot. We talk a lot. We talk about a lot of different things. We share a love for hip-hop and rap music, so we text each other music back and forth. But Derek has been one of my biggest supporters, and just very meaningful conversations and relationship that we've developed. We've just had a really good time, like figuring out this podcast, figuring out how to make an impact in the lives of people with around mental health services and things, and so it's just been, they're just a tremendous couple to be around. They started this Mindful Therapy Group from the ground up. And has really built it out to be something pretty spectacular. With, I think they just opened an office in Tempe, Arizona. They have a couple offices here in the Pacific Northwest, and they represent other therapists. And so I just want to give them a big shout out, man, because I didn't know where this was going to go. When we first started, and we all sitting in a room together and trying to figure out what it is and what it's not, and what we want to do with it, and me trying to get to know, who they were. And, man, it's just a friendship has just grown out of it that I value quite a bit. And so hopefully in the next episode, we'll get to interview Derek, and we can hear his story and how he, came to, to create this organization that represents and gives a lot of resources to a lot of people that need it. And then his wife, Jessica, is just as incredible, and a little bit more, seems a little more quiet than Derek, but two tremendous individuals that I just want to give a shout out to for supporting me. They've done a really good job in doing that. And so, but to keep on moving, this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it got me wondering, like, why this month? Out of all the months in a year, why this month? And if my research is correct, I couldn't really find why they picked a specific month, but it was established in 1949 by the MHA, the Mental Health of America, and back then it was known as the National Association for Mental Health. And the thing that was shocking to me is that it was established in 1949, and I feel like I've just heard about it in the last 3 or 4 years, and maybe that's because of my own mental health journey, but it didn't seem to be as celebrated and seen on different screens and things up until the last few years ago. So I thought it was something that was like a really recent established awareness month, but it was established in 1949 to increase the awareness of the importance of mental health and wellness in Americans' lives, and to celebrate recovery from mental illness. So I'm not exactly sure what triggered it, but it seems like back then there must have been an increase in mental illness that doctors were seeing at the time. I don't know how prevalent the psychology world was, but I would imagine that just in your regular hospital general doctors, practitioners that they were coming across this stuff, and then as they started trying to find ways to service it, that there came a point where they felt like it was big enough and important enough to bring an awareness to. So it's really interesting that it seems like this thing has, like mental health and the importance of mental health and the focus on mental health has really cranked up. It was cranking up a little bit before the pandemic, and then after the pandemic, or through the pandemic and after the pandemic, it has really ramped up to almost where you feel like this is a new thing that we're doing, but it actually has been celebrated or highlighted, if you want to call it that, since 1949 by Mental Health of America, and so to me, it's just another indication that mental health plays a vital role in our overall health and well-being. Just like if you were gonna go to the gym and work out, or go outside and go for a walk, or if you had a cold, or if you had some other illness where you had to go to the doctor to be treated, mental health and wellness is no different. And so, speaking of that, I try to make some of the topics that we talk about on here as current as I possibly can. And so I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball, but I think it's still fresh enough to have a conversation or just a short little bit about it. But I couldn't help but wonder, throughout the whole second half of the women's college basketball season, and then into the NCAA tournament, just the ways that those young women were taking care of their mental health. And two people in particular, which, were kind of like the polarizing players that kind of brought a lot of attention to the game, and then also created a lot of the noise around the game, and that is Caitlin Clark of Iowa and Angel Reese of LSU. And I thought it was interesting because I wanted to see, I did some research to kind of see how, if either one of them mentioned anything about mental health. And I was surprised to see that one of the very first articles that was on the Google list was about Caitlin Clark. And, you can, this isn't an argument about if Caitlin Clark is the GOAT of all time and all that other kind of stuff. Like, that's for other people to decide. And that was also part of what created a lot of the noise around this season, was the one side saying that she's the GOAT the best of all time, and she's the GOAT, and the others saying like, well, she's a scoring champ and she does some cool stuff, but she's not the greatest of all time. She doesn't have championships, all this other kind of stuff. And then how do you judge a champion, the greatest of all time, if you don't have championships and this, that, and the other thing? So this is not that conversation. But I thought it was interesting that the pressure to perform and win and represent an entire community of your college town and of women basketball players was just outright tremendous and sometimes ridiculous to me. Just the pressure that was generated and the noise that was generated not by the players, but by the people around it, around the game and around them. And to me, sometimes that noise is the most damaging noise of it all, because there's so much about it that the players have no control over, even though they're the center of the conversations. And then when they don't show up, or if they don't respond in a certain way, then either the supporters are going in hard on them, or the haters are going in hard on them. So it's almost like a no-win situation. If you play up to what you think you can play, then your supporters are all for you and the haters hate you. But if you play down to it, then the haters are like hating more and the supporters are kind of talking down to you. So it was just, to me, it was tremendous. All the news coverage, like wanting to know all these different things about them and what they were doing and how they were doing it. And to me, it reminded me of when I took a job with the University of Virginia, I want to say 2010-ish. And at the same time, this guy, Jim Bowman, who was a sports psychologist, and he's here in town too, and he was at Washington State at the time. He's a sports psychologist for the athletic department for the Washington State Cougars. and he took this job to be the sports psychologist for University of Virginia athletic department. And we started on the exact same week. I was the life skills director, and Jim was the sports psychologist. And within the very first week, Jim had so many caseloads that they had to hire 2 more psychologists under him to help him handle the caseload. And the thing that he talked about the most was this pressure to perform and to be on 24 hours a day. So you had to be the perfect student, you had to be the perfect citizen in the community and on campus or grounds, and you also had to be the very best perfect player and win. Not just show up and work hard, but the pressure to win was tremendous. And so these young people were having a really, really hard time dealing with this. And so I was just curious to see how Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese dealt with it, because, man, it had gotten to a place that it was hard to enjoy the games because of all the buildup and the talk moving up to the game. If you're on social media, you had to kind of cipher through all of that stuff. All the different sports stations that were kind of pushing their agenda and trying to make this rivalry, whether they're playing against each other or not, even bigger than it needed to be. And, man, to me, it would just – I don't know how it could not take a toll on an athlete nowadays. And so you can say, hey, well, just block it out or don't respond to it or don't read it or whatever. But how can you? Like, on every single platform that you can imagine, that's all they were talking about, whether it was Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, on TV, on streaming, like every possible place that you can imagine having some type of communication with the public, this conversation was happening. And then so much pressure was being put on both players, to either to show up and perform, or there was so much hate and visceral and disrespect coming at the players that they themselves, I don't think, warranted, and so I thought it was really interesting. And what I found was that they had 2 totally different approaches to it, and I think both of them are responses to like this type of stress. In some cases, it can be traumatizing, and so I think they both had what they felt were appropriate responses. And if you think of Caitlin Clark, Caitlin didn't ever seem to openly respond to a lot of the noise that was going on. It seemed like she kind of kept her camp tight and she kept her comments short and just to the point. And then she just played basketball, was with her teammates and with her family. That's what it appeared to me. And people may say, like, well, she's very calm and mature, and so that was a mature way to handle it. But also that could also be a response to stress and trauma, is to kind of tighten your ship and like keep things close to the cuff and not let people in, and you kind of protect yourself with your family and with your team and with your support group. And what I found is that Caitlin is a proponent of therapy. And she works with sports psychologists, and something she found. I guess the quote says it was something she found super helpful throughout her time at Iowa. And the quote that she had was, "That should be normal for college student athletes. It should be normal for college student athletes to engage their therapists and sports psychologists on their staff, and most teams do have them now." And she acknowledged that therapy can be a place to share both the letdowns and the great things that happen along the way. And I think that's important, because some people think that going to therapy and having these mental health crises or situations is all about negative things and things that fall apart and things aren't going your way, or negative feelings that you're having. But sometimes you have to figure out how to handle the success too, because that can also bring more stress and more expectations, which she was definitely under. And then she goes on to say, it's such a stressful period of your life. You're 18 to 22 years old and trying to figure out which way your life is going to go, while so many eyeballs are on you, and it can be difficult at times. And so I don't know that had you not read this quote, or maybe if this was like a live feed or something, if you would ever have known that about Caitlin Clark, because she always seemed to be so cool, calm, and collected. But she's telling you that even with all the success that she was having and with all the support that she was having, that she had a tough time dealing with all the eyeballs on her. Like, she just wanted to go play basketball. She wanted to go win a national championship. That was the only thing that was that she had not accomplished. She was the scoring leader, and I think she was also like the all-time assist leader. And then she was like the all-time just college basketball in general scoring leader. So she was all-time women's scorer, then just all-time scorer, and then she was also is the assist leader. But she had fallen short with the national championship. So I would imagine that those were the things that were on her mind, was trying to help her team get to that place. And so she seems to have surrounded herself with the right people, and to try to maintain her space and help her manage things. Honestly, I was in Indianapolis, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago, like right after the WNBA draft. Was there for Special Olympics. We were having some meetings there, and we're actually staying in the same hotel as Caitlin Clark. And it was interesting because she and her mom, and I think I don't know if it's a brother or a boyfriend or something, but it was she and her mom and a male. They would post up right outside our conference room every day on the second floor in the corner of this hotel. So you know that she is keeping things tight. And it wasn't like she was being standoffish or wasn't trying to engage people, but you can tell that she was trying to keep a space distance from people so that she can be in a safe place to kind of be who she needed to be and do the things that she needed to do the things that she needed to do. And it's really funny, though, because a lot of people on our team, we probably had maybe 40 people there, and all 40 people saw her, and 39 of us was so in awe we couldn't even like get to our meetings, and everyone. It was interesting because if you have young kids, you know that like when you have sweets and candy and stuff like that around, and it's sitting like on the table, and you can just see them just staring at it, like, and their hands are just like right here, and like every time you look, their hands are getting a little bit closer. They just can't. They just want to grab this food and this candy so bad. That's what it was like watching these adults walk past Caitlin Clark. They wanted to say hello. They wanted to make eye contact. They wanted to take a picture. They wanted to get an autograph. But they were trying so hard. You could see everything in their being, like trying not to even like do anything to disrupt the atmosphere around Caitlin with her and her mom sitting in these two chairs. It was really really kind of funny to watch and just watch people just really get to that kid place. And their demeanor around her. And so it was pretty cool that, Caitlin kept her cool. She and her mom kept showing up to the same spot, and we had our people walking by her, and people didn't bother her. But it kind of gave me just a little peek into, the what she deals with, and in a place where this is a big, huge hotel, and she and her mom had found this little corner of the hotel to kind of hide out, and then we had our big Special Olympic meetings right there next to her. But we did a good job of keeping our distance. But to me, it just speaks to the people that she has around her and the way that she approached this whole idea around mental health and all the stress and pressure and things that she's under. And as we were talking about the mental health stuff, and we talked a little bit earlier about Derek and Jessica Crain, who started the Mindful Therapy Group. The Mindful Therapy Group, based in the Pacific Northwest, is a diverse group of qualified mental health providers offering both in-person and virtual care. Whether it's talk therapy or medication management, you can book your first visit within 1 week. Visit mindfultherapygroup.com to start your journey to better mental health today. And like I said earlier, just getting to know Derek and Jessica, man, they're amazing people. And this is an amazing group. They do a really good job of matching individuals with therapists that can serve their needs. And, like I said, like we've said this before, sometimes this is not the first therapist you come across. You may have to go through a couple of them to kind of get the person that is your person that you kind of connect with. And they do a really good job of doing a lot of that pre-work before they start to connect you with a therapist from their team. And they also do a good job of supporting those therapists. I think one of the things they do is they help beginning therapists or young therapists establish their business. And so I think they're able to create a caseload, and Derek and those guys help them learn how to run the whole business thing, and then they have a chance to kind of branch out on their own. On the other side of the women's college basketball hoopla that was going on was Angel Reese. And it's interesting because Angel Reese is a bigger personality, I want to say, than Caitlin Clark. Just more outward with her approach to it. She's quoted saying she's just unapologetically who she is. But she also lost to Caitlin Clark in Iowa, I think, in the Final Four before they got to the national championship. And in the press conference after the game, she was quoted as saying, "I just try to stay strong. I've been attacked so many times, death threats, I've been sexualized, I've been threatened. All this has happened since I won the national championship, and I haven't been happy since then." And the thing that is amazing to me is that people just totally missed the last line is, "I haven't been happy since then." And they just went right to her antics on the court. And I will say this, like, if you take everything that someone does on the field or the court of competition and use that to define who they are, then you're totally missing the mark. Because sometimes you have to play the part to be the part. I fought a lot all the time. If there was not a fight, I was trying to avoid on the football field. Even if my teammates was getting into it with someone, I'm going to find some way somehow to get a punch in. and so in college, I fought so much in practice that they called my dad and was like, "Hey, what's wrong with this dude? Like, he fights all the time." But I never got into a fight off the field. I'm like the most approachable person you can imagine. Like, for a guy that at the time was 6'6" and 300 and something pounds, and wore a face mask to smash people in the face all the time. Like, off the field, I was a totally different dude. I just knew on the field I had to be a different persona to be able to do the things that I needed to do to get myself to a place where I needed to get to perform my best. And I think it was my senior year in college. I think it was the Washington Post did this article, and I think they titled it "The Gentle Giant," because they could not put together how I could be so aggressive and dominating on the football field and be such a soft-spoken, easygoing, want to make sure everybody's doing fine guy off the field. And so it was just this idea that, like, man, like it wasn't like I was going into character. It was just like the place I had to go to be able to do the things I do. And so I could identify with how Angel Reese went about her business because she was putting herself into a mindset to play the way that she can play and play her best basketball. But also, I think it was also a response to the stress and the trauma of being, like she said, attacked with death threats and been sexualized and all these different kinds of things. I think that that was also a way that she protected herself, whereas Caitlin Clark kind of brought everything in kind of close and tight and kind of put people around her to kind of insulate her from a lot of the noise. And I can't say that Angel Reese went to had a therapist or not. I didn't find that anywhere, but that doesn't mean that she didn't. But Angel Reese was like, "Well, I'm just gonna muscle up to it all," and all of those are responses to stress and trauma. Sometimes, like the response to stress and trauma is to drink too much. Sometimes it is to party too hard. Sometimes it is to drive too fast. Sometimes it's to take super risky, take risks that aren't healthy and that can end the wrong way. Sometimes, like for me, I tend to kind of just shut down. And so, but other people muscle up. And I think Angel Reese was the type of person that kind of muscles up. If you think about her upbringing and where she came from Baltimore, which is a tough city, and the things she had to do to survive there. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Richard Sherman. Like, people can say what you want about Richard Sherman and all the talking and his bravado and all that kind of stuff, but man, like, he probably needed that to survive, and to be able to come out of a place like Compton, California. So, like, I can imagine that Andrew Reese had to kind of muscle up and do some things, and put your chest out and be this tough, dominant personality in order to get to where she wanted to go. And the thing that was really interesting to me is that after the end of one of her quotes, she said, "I'm still human." And I think that's what people forget, is that we project so much onto athletes, especially now these young players, like Caitlin Clark said, 18 to 22 years old. So they're still young people, still developing, still trying to figure out what they're doing in the world, how to do it, and then also meeting all these expectations, their own and the unrealistic expectations of the noise outside. But she said, "I'm still human." And then she went on to say, "And it sucks, but I still wouldn't change." And this is where I think, like, I think she caught herself in this vulnerable place, and then almost on the fly had to go, "Yeah, but like, I need, like, to protect that vulnerable me, I need to muscle back up," like, right on the fly. So she went right from talking about the death threats and not being happy, and then saying, "But I still wouldn't change. I wouldn't change anything, and I would sit here and say, I'm unapologetically me. I'm going to always leave that mark and be who I am and stand on that. Hopefully, the little girls that look up to me, hopefully, I give them some type of inspiration. Keep being who you are. Don't back down, and just be confident." And the thing is, to me, that is such a loaded response and reflection to what she had just talking about, the vulnerable part of her. And I think I remember even in that press conference, like, she kind of teared up a little bit, so there's a little, if you want to call it, a chink in the armor, just a little bit. And she was talking about, like, I wasn't happy, so, like, if she wasn't happy, that means that she wasn't enjoying all the winning and all the things that she was doing, even though she should have been able to. And she was one of those 18 to 22 years old. And then she said, I'm still human. And so some people criticize her for her openness and her truth. And that's too bad, because regardless of how you view her attitude or approach, if you're responding to what she was saying, if she is saying that she's been through death threats, she's been sexualized, and she's been threatened, and she has not been happy. If your response to that is to criticize and critique how she went about being who she was, then that is part of the problem to me, because you get so caught up into this idea that sometimes you just have to be who you have to be in these areas of play so that you can perform and be your best, and then you're using that to say that's who that person is. And then because of that, then she deserved to be attacked. She deserved the death threats. She deserved to be sexualized. She deserved to be threatened. If you're telling someone that they deserve those types of things based on their demeanor and approach to participating in sports, to me, then you become part of this whole mental health problem, because you are not seeing the humanity of a person. You're not seeing, like Caitlin Clark said, a young person who is trying to figure it out under all of the eyeballs. And those were words from Caitlin Clark. Under all of the eyeballs that were on her, like, how do I manage all of this? How do I make sense of it so that I can still go out and do what I have to do and also still be a young person? And both of these young ladies were carrying the load. I mean, like, Dawn Staley in South Carolina had an amazing season, undefeated basketball season, a completely, totally different starting five, had lost all 5 starters from the team that went to the championship the year before, and lost, and then turned around and created a whole new starting five and went undefeated. And nobody, it was almost like the 4th or 5th story in women's basketball. And it was an amazing story. But these 2 young ladies were carrying the weight of it all, not because they were choosing to, but because other people were putting it on their plate, and then they had to deal with it, and then people either could appreciate how they were dealing with it because Caitlin Clark was a little bit more subdued and kept everything closer to the cuff, or they criticized how they were dealing with it because Angel Reese was more big and bold and loud as a way to kind of protect herself. And so I just think it's important that that you hear that what both of those young ladies said, that we are 18 to 22-year-olds, and Angel said we're still humans. So let that just sink in for a bit. Like you might think of them as basketball players, and somehow you remove the humanity from the athlete. And I think that happens a lot, and especially in football, they expect you to be this gladiator where you have no emotions and you don't cry and you don't bleed and you don't hurt and you have to play through pain and all this tough macho stuff. And to me, it makes the mental health battle even tougher and harder for these athletes. And so you can imagine being a young person like they are, and being superstars, rock stars in their college towns, and then also being these, in some respects, international stars that are carrying the weight of women's basketball on their shoulders, and then having to take all that comes with it that they don't necessarily have control over, but is contributing to the noise around them, which then contributes to their mental health and wellness, or their difficulty with mental health and wellness. So I will say to both of them that it's tremendous that they were successful as they were dealing with all of that stuff. They had to have some type of support and therapy, whether the therapy is like official with a therapist, or sometimes therapy can just be shutting down everything and putting some music on and just laying it down, or it can be going for a walk or going for a swim or a bike ride or whatever it is, like just a way to kind of separate yourself from people. That can be therapeutic as well. So two totally different perspectives, or I want to say different ways that you can see how two totally different people and personalities handled stress and trauma and expectation and unrealistic expectations and things, and this big, huge conversation that was going on around them, but about them, that they had to deal with, and questions they had to answer, and things they had to read on social media, and all these different things that they really didn't have play any role in, other than that they were the parties that were playing the basketball. And I'm sure that if you ask them, they both just wanted to play basketball.